Hi, I'm Ted Haftagaber, founder and producer of Live Talks Los Angeles. Thanks for joining us. Since we started over a decade ago, we have brought you hundreds of conversations with storytellers, writers, actors, musicians, humorists, chefs, and thought leaders in business and science. You can watch and hear most of these in our YouTube channel and our podcast. For details, visit livetalksla.org. And now, here's the show you've tuned in to see.
It's so nice to be here with you, Nicole.
I love that we're doing this.
I know. Well, we're just for a little context before we get into Nicole's wonderful book. Nicole and I are god sisters, and her father is my godfather.
Yeah.
And my father is your godfather. So we grew up together, and we spent a lot of time together. And I've had the privilege of knowing Nicole and her beautiful family my entire life. But Nicole wrote this book, and as much as I know you, there's so much I don't know about you. The first thing being, you're such an incredible writer.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, the genesis of this book, I'm sure this book lived inside you in a lot of different ways and for a lot of different reasons. And the book, for those of you who haven't read it, it's one part memoir, one part family history, one part American history, and then one part, intentionally or not, self-help, in a sense, like for yourself and for others. There's just lots of gems and pearls of wisdom in here. But why don't you just start by telling everybody kind of what was sort of like the major impetus that got you to write this version of this book now?
Good question. Thank you, Rashi. So I was writing a book. So the subtitle, as you know, is Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. So it's Think You'll Be Happy, Moving Through Grief with Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. And I had started writing a book on the themes of grit, grace, and gratitude during COVID. And I thought, okay, I got these themes from the Black Godfather. They're very American. I was trying to put some good energy into the universe because everyone was saying, you know, what's missing in society now? Everyone seems so angry. Everyone's kind of stopping. No one's really moving forward. And I said, I think they're missing a little grit. I think it's the grit that's kind of missing in society. So that's when I started to write that. And then we had a couple of drafts and we were getting close to kind of what I wanted. And then this unfortunate tragedy happened to my family. And my mother, unfortunately, you know, somebody had broken into their house and she was shot and she died later at the hospital. And of course, typical Jackie Avant, her last words to me that night were, "Think you'll be happy." And that is why I realized I can't put out a book after my mom's been killed on grit, grace, and gratitude. So I decided, you know what, we're going to weave this in. My mom was filled with grit and with grace and with gratitude. So it's funny how life works out. You never know this tragedy happened, and my personality being my personality, I thought I'm going to make the best out of a horrible, horrific situation, and we're going to start with the title. And that's how we honor my mom. Yeah. And I love that Think You'll Be Happy. The fact that those were her last words to me is not a coincidence. It's so typical Jackie to give me a mantra to move forward in my life, because she was a big believer in thoughts and words. She'd always say, you know, your words will create your world, your thoughts will create your world. And, you know, they have a lot to do with everything. And so that's kind of how the book came together.
Yeah. Incredible. I mean, as your friend and as your family member, I cannot I'm just in awe of your ability to process, be honest, and move through with all the things that that are in your title. So whatever you were, espousing for others, like, I can say, like, you have that, and you, in spades in this book, you're so honest about your relationship with your parents, you're honest about your place in history, you're honest about your growth, you're honest about your mistakes, which I find so lovely and refreshing, because I think, we live in a very tight society right now where it's really hard to make a mistake, and it's really hard to write about a mistake and be honest about a mistake
It's hard
in public.
to be human. God forbid we're human.
Yeah.
God forbid anybody makes a mistake, or now in society you say sorry for something, you say, oh, I own that, I'm so sorry. And it's still, and I think what it is, it's, to your point, it's tight because it's self-righteous. And it's inhumane because we all, to err is human. We're all going to make different mistakes. Some obviously are worse than others, but we can't say we're here to grow as human beings and souls and then not allow anyone to grow.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then we have things that happen.
Yeah.
And then they force us to grow.
And then they force us to grow, 100%.
So on that note, we lose Jackie, which is absolutely shocking. But for you as her daughter, and something I relate to, obviously it was different. I lost my mom about 4 years ago, and that was hard for our family community as well. It was both shocking and a huge loss. So just talk a little bit about how you deal with the first 24 hours, the first month, and the first year of that.
The first 24 hours I was in complete shock. It was shock and trauma and stress that I had never felt. I have veins in my body. I didn't even know I had these veins. They were bulging because your whole body, your whole system is trying to survive. And I couldn't process, but the beautiful thing is that I had friends show up. They just showed up at the house. You were there, Kenyatta was there. People just would show up and bring love. And the love sometimes was food, the love was cards, the love was flowers, sometimes the love was silence, or it was a hug and just being there. But the first 24 hours, I remember thinking, okay, wait, I took my dad home with us from the hospital. We left, I brought Clarence home. And the first 24 hours, honestly, I think I was mostly worried about him and just wanted to make sure that he wasn't gonna just lose his mind. I mean, he was 2 months shy of 91, and they had been married for 54 years, together 56 years. So that was the hard part. And then the first month, it was baby steps. You know how we all say, we take it one day at a time, we're gonna take it one day at a time? I was honestly taking things 1 minute at a time. And then I would say to myself, okay, for the next 5 minutes, this is just the next 5 minutes. If I could just get through the next 5 minutes. And then the more and more I did that, then it became, I'm going to do the next hour. And then it became, and so it just took time. But that's why we use the word moving, because the only way out is through. So you have to move with the tragedy, with the grief. And the more I tried to resist it, and the more I tried to say, this isn't happening, I can't believe this is happening, it made it worse.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with people where it's like, it's this weird rite of passage when you lose your parents, because they're the people who brought you here in a lot of ways. And so that kind of binary moment of, you're welcome to that club. Like it really feels like an ushering into adulthood.
Yes.
But the birthing process into adulthood is kind of indescribable. But if you had to, obviously grief is so hard to describe, but what would you say that feeling is, if you had to?
For me, it was a very heavy, weighted blanket, as if someone put a blanket on me and I had all these weights at the bottom, and it was wet and damp. That's the way it felt for me. And it was, so every day I would move with it, but try to take it, I couldn't let it consume me. My intention was, I understand I need to grieve. I understand this is a process of life, because if you love anybody, as we all have in this room, it could be a parent, a brother, a sister, a dog, a cat, anything. You're going to grieve when it leaves. We just, and we're all leaving.
Yep,
And
that much is true.
that much is the one thing that is constant. Is like, we're not all staying here.
Yep.
So I had to, that also helped me of just, this is a part of life. And passing over is a part of living. And reminding myself every day that people leave this earth every day and people are born every day. And it's a beautiful thing. It is a circle of life.
Yeah. It's hard to understand that in the moment, but it is. It's
Very.
sort of like this is the natural way of things. I mean, this is truly the best case scenario. Is you lose your parents don't lose you. You lose your
Exactly.
parents. It's the best way.
It's the best way.
So this book, I mean, but it's not just about your grief. It is really a tribute to your parents and your parents' life and the wonderful people and the lineage that you come from. And you have such a great awareness of where you land in the context of history. And like I loved reading this book because, yeah, you just snuck in some American history. I mean, you could say Black American history, but really that's American history, so we say what it is. But there's just all these incredible stories and all the people that your parents touched. Did you know all that? Did you have to do research? Like, how did you gather all this information? Is it all in your head?
A lot of it was because my mom loved history. Jackie loved history so much, and she appreciated history, and she always wanted me to remember that, like, if she was sitting here right now, she'd say to all of you right now, remember, you're standing on very important shoulders, no matter what you look like, no matter what gender you are, no matter what race you are. Somebody came before you and had it harder. People, like all of us sitting in this room tonight, this was a lot of work over many years, over the last 60 years, 100 years of people having to move through a lot of shit for us to be here calmly, friendly, listening to each other about each other's worlds. It didn't just happen. And I think that is something to actually be celebrated, because all countries are like that, and all of life is like that. And my mom never wanted me to forget that. Like I said, I stand on strong shoulders, but people who sacrificed and sacrificed with joy, meaning they knew they weren't going to get the harvest, but that I was going to be the promise. And so for that, I wanted to make sure I put that in the book and write about all American history. I mean, my mom got into service because of Andrew Goodman, like we were talking earlier. And he's a part of American history, and James Chaney and Michael Sherman and all of them who were in Mississippi, and they were going to register people to vote. And then the Ku Klux Klan, again, and we were talking backstage, people forget, the Klan is and really was, for many, many years, they were a real terrorist group. We're all talking about terrorist groups around the world, and we had one here too. And it was horrific. And people really fought against that negativity for so long that my mom never wanted me to forget that, and for me to walk into this new world that was created for me.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And the truth is, the goal really is to create other generations that can forget the pain and suffering, right? Yes. Because that means you've done a good job as a parent. Yes. And I know we have this in common. We have parents who, went through a lot of trials and tribulations, things that we could never imagine. We've had incredibly privileged lives and felt it's our responsibility to honor our parents in that way, because that's our DNA. And yes. Also they really wanted us to know that. So how do you, we live in an era and we also live in a country where we like to kind of forget where we came from, because there's like this kind of like renewal, this sense that anything's possible, that you can move on. You don't have to know where you came from. You can define yourself. You can reinvent yourself, all that stuff. What do you think? I know this is a big question, but what do you think? What would you say to, your stepchildren or your, like people of another generation in terms of their relationship with where they came from.
I think it's okay to be in a place like the generations are now, the younger generations, where, I want to forget that and I just want to start over and I'm going to be who I am in this freedom, and that's okay. However, I think the missing link is it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can have that attitude, but I think the greatest way to honor our ancestors is to use our freedom wisely and to do whatever you want to do, but not forget that you're able to do what you want to do because other people came before you and did the really hard, shitty, crappy work for you.
Right.
And you're welcome.
Preach.
And so you should, you should go into life like, people forget.
Yes.
And again, people did it that's what sacrifice is. And today, it's whether I walk into a restaurant or whatever, there's somebody in the armed services, or I saw some, women in uniform last week in New York, and I was so excited just to meet them and take a photo with them, because we forget that, first responders, any type of first responder, teachers, everything, people go out to serve every day. And I just think we're kind of not seeing them.
Well, we also, obviously there's a lot of factors that keep us apart right now. It feels like we're coming together, but the truth is it's all happening virtually. And one of those things is definitely service. Service is, part of it is about connection, and your mom was served. That's what she did. She served.
Yes.
And I love that beautiful story that, she did this incredible thing when she was alive that she didn't want anybody to talk about, that you didn't find out about until after she passed. What was that? Yeah.
The bicycles. Yeah. So I think it was a couple of weeks after my mom passed, somebody said, I know you're not watching the news, and I don't want you to Google this, but I'm going to send you this news clip. But did you know that your mom just gave away 300 bicycles to Sweet Alice in South Central? I go, 300 bicycles? No, she didn't. She goes, no, she bought all the bikes for all these kids for Christmas. And it was the most beautiful story, because I was in that fetal position and I was so sad and trying to find any drop of goodness in life. And then my friend sent me that clip and she said, there she goes. Somebody had a need, and my mom said, I can fulfill the need. And it makes me happy, because my mom she understood that she was blessed. She wasn't uncomfortable with her blessing. She lived her life the way she wanted to, but she always said, the blessings that I have are for me to share with others. That's what everyone is supposed to do. So, a lot of people feel very guilty if they're fortunate or blessed or anything. She never felt guilty about it, but she said the problem is when you hoard it and you keep the door closed as if you got here by yourself and all the blessings are yours. She's like, they're here to be shared with people. And it was a really, really great lesson, which is why it was easy for her to serve.
And also how lovely for her to send you that little message when you're in pain and missing her. She's like, I'm right stuff's
here.
Still happening.
Stuff is still happening. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. I know everybody kind of stands in different places about this, but I know for myself, I have to talk to my mom, and she's here with me, and that's just the way it is. And whatever anybody else believes, that's for me, that works, and that's how I can feel her love in my life. What is your relationship like with your mom now? I
do that. I talk to her every day, as if she's in the room every day. I feel her. When I was writing this book, true story, I rarely dreamt about her. And I had this one dream, and I saw her red nails on a typewriter. And I just asked her, is there anything I should edit? Is this chapter good? And I honestly saw these red nails. I went, okay, I'm going to edit. Okay, thanks. Didn't like it. Okay, let me fix this chapter.
Still opinionated.
But God, still Jackie. I'm sure she's evolved, still the same. But I talk to her every night when I take a bath, and I have a ritual, and I light my candle, and I have her things around me. Like, I love collecting her eyeglasses. Like, there's just something about her eyeglasses that I love, and I keep them around, and I keep any little trinkets. But I talk to her as if she's here, and she always taught me that the spirit is everlasting. And I don't know how it all works, but I do feel her. And like you said, it just works for me. So I do what works for me. It doesn't matter if she can't hear or not. I'm actually doing it for myself because I want to stay connected to her.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to feel her.
Yeah.
And I listen to the music that she loved on purpose. And I read the books that she loved. And I watch all the movies that she loved watching just to keep her spirit in my presence.
Yeah. That's so lovely. Me too. What I love so much about this book too is like in some ways it is a manual for grief. Like I know you didn't mean it to be that way, but there's a lot of things in here. And one of them that I really love is when you talk about how people talk to you about your own grief, because I think a lot of us, it's human nature.
We all do
We
it.
project all our pain all over the person who is grieving because we're putting ourselves in that position, or we're imagining how awful it must be for the other person. And you talk a lot about like what it was that you wanted from people in your grief. And can you just like, I mean, it's obviously it's prescriptive and it's different for everybody, but for you, it seemed to be just being loved.
The simplest text that came that said, I love you, they were like just a healing balm. Each time someone just said, I love you, I'm here for anything and everything, but I love you, I love you, I love you. And then I noticed after this happened, when people would say things to me that that made me feel uncomfortable, I thought, oh, crap, I've done this. You don't know what to say. Or we all say, I don't know what to say. And then you say that, I don't know what to say. Or I used to make the mistake of saying, I know exactly how you're feeling. And I didn't realize that when I used to say that to people, it didn't then give them any room to tell me how they were feeling, because I already told them I knew how they were feeling. But you don't know that, you don't mean it in a bad way.
Right.
But I've learned the bigger the tragedy, this is what I have learned, the bigger the tragedy, the less you say. And then the one thing that I really love that I try to do now is just show up. Just showing up is everything. And a lot doesn't need to be said. And I think we're just so used to having to say the right thing.
Right.
And sometimes it's saying nothing and just being there.
Well, that's also, I mean, that's very much your mom. You know, like you talk a lot about your early relationship with her, and she showed up. She showed up all the time, and that was like her love language.
Yes.
She showed up.
Yep.
So you get to be that for other people now, you know?
We even used to show up for your plays that you used to do.
I know, you came to all my school plays.
My mom was like, Rashida's in a play.
Nicole
We're
just
gonna go
reminded
see
me
Rashida.
that she came home from
like, well, okay, Mom, it's a school play. Get in the car.
No,
Rashida.
it was great. I loved it. But Nicole just reminded me that there was a time she came home from college, and I was just by myself at her parents' house watching TV, and she was like, "Where are the Joneses?" And Jackie was like, "Rashida just wanted to come over and watch TV at our house." I just loved it.
I love that
My favorite
that
place
she
to
had
be.
this thing with my mom of just, my mom was like, I don't know, Rashida just loves comedy and she loves this, and she knew something was going to happen
she did.
with
She
you.
knew me.
So
She knew me.
it
She
worked.
saw me for
She
sure.
did.
I think both of us are very close with our parents, very lucky to be close with our parents. But I want to ask you, who were you because of your parents? And who were you, not in spite of your parents, but that's different from your parents? Like, how are you yourself?
You know, my mom gave me one of the best things she said to me was, I was very young and I didn't understand it until, my adult years, but she said, the most important thing I can give you is for you to own your individuality. And there is no other you. So you're going to have to figure out who you are, because I would complain to her and say, why are you always putting me in all these situations that I don't want to be in? And I don't want to go to this camp, and I do not want to play this instrument, and I do not want to do this. And she said, because I have to put you in situations so that then your soul can figure out where it swims naturally, where it doesn't. And you can't quit, but we'll stop when it's over. But I love that she always would say, there's nobody else, not even twins, nobody. No one is the same. So you might as well be the best version of yourself. And her word for that was your individuality. And so I think that I'm steadfast. Even though she gave that to me, she didn't do it for herself when she was younger. And she didn't understand it, which is why she was drilling it into me. But I'm very similar to them, where I just feel the need I'm very comfortable serving. I'm just very comfortable now serving in my own way. It might be different than my parents, but if I'm called to something and it's creative and films that heal and books that heal or anything that's going to transcend, I want to be a part of it. And so I don't know if that answered that question, but
No, steadfastness.
Yes.
That is something for sure. And also the fact that you got to try on things
Yes.
to really figure out who you are,
Yeah.
and what you want to serve and who you
Yes.
want to serve. Now, I want to talk too about when you wrote this book and why, what kind of kicked it off. But you wrote this book, right? You were done. And recently we've, lost another great, wonderful member of our community. Your
Papa.
Papa Clarence.
And
What
Rashida's born on his birthday.
we have the same birthday, yes. And I mean, what a loss. And if you have not seen The Black Godfather, I highly recommend it because you really get a sense.
thank
It's
you.
such a great film.
Thank you.
And that's Clarence. Like, you got the essence of Clarence in that movie. He's so funny. He's so just tells it like it is. He will curse you to high heaven or hell, depending on the day. But he's just kept it so real. And he was so loving and so loyal. And
Very.
my dad's best friend for 50 years, they spoke on the phone every single day.
Every day.
Huge, and a huge loss, obviously, in that way. But, you had this time to really dig into your family history, into processing your grief. And, Clarence was 92. He lived a beautiful life. And now he's with Jackie, which is so lovely. But how did writing this book, right before his passing, like, how did that help you, prepare
It was
you?
the best having him home with me because he really, like I said earlier, when I started writing the book, and then I was like, I'm not putting a book out on grit, grace, and gratitude. And my dad said, you better keep writing. I said, what am I going to write about? He said, Jackie, write about Jackie. And I said, well, I mean, yeah, okay, but Dad, there's other things. He goes, but Jackie embodies everything that you're talking about anyway, so you could weave her in. And it was so great having him at home because he reminded me that, his life was so hard. I mean, he's born in 1931 and segregated USA and picking cotton and picking sweet potatoes at the time and tobacco. He was 4, 5, 6 years old and just, bounced around at homes, just never, he always found a place to land. That's what he said. Even after my mom, that's why I knew it. But it was great to have him for the 20 months that I did in the house with us so that he reminded me of stories. Just his essence gave me the strength to continue. I kind of wanted to finish the book for him because he'd ask about it all the time. So I thought, okay, well, if this makes him happy, I'm just going to keep doing this because this makes my dad happy. And then he helped me finish the book. I don't think I would have finished it without Clarence.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so lovely. That's so
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
So it's both of yours,
Yeah,
Like, it's all of yours.
all the way up until the end, and I got the galley, and he read it, and he's like, "Ooh, girl, this is good." He's like, "I have to get the dictionary." Hold on.
That's Jackie.
But he was so proud. I think because he loved that I told him some of the themes in American history and American progress and trying to honor ancestors as well and talk about service. And he liked all those things because he said, I just think society is missing these things and I hope we can get back to laughing with each other. I always say, like, my father was Archie Bunker and my mom was Queen Cleopatra and they got together. And so
What
the
a
house
combo.
was like that, very pristine and perfect. And then he'd come in and, even up until the last year, I was like, you can't say that. You can't tell. He's like, what do you mean? What? But, there was nothing. His whole thing was, God, we used to laugh with each other and learn through comedy and learn through these great TV shows. And now it's, don't say that
Tight.
because you're going to offend this. But, so he loved the idea. And comedy helped us a lot, by the way. Like, I would sit with my father and we would watch lots of Seinfeld, and we'd watch Sebastian, and we'd watch Bill Maher, anything to get us laughing again. And all the Norman Lear TV shows, we just watched them on rerun all the time. And the Jeffersons, it was the best.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
also your dad was the funniest person ever.
Yeah.
I mean,
So he'd laugh, and his big laugh, and then I'd laugh, and that really, laughter really is a great healing balm. It does. It is really good medicine for the soul. So we did that together.
Yeah. So your life has in some ways changed so much in the last 2 years. So since December 2021, like, I know it's hard to sum this up, but how would you say your life has changed, and how has it not changed? Like, what is the kind of common thread from that time to now?
I have a sense of urgency that I didn't have before. I have a much stronger discipline, which is great, that I needed, and I didn't realize I needed that. So I didn't cancel anything. I didn't cancel meetings. I didn't cancel board meetings. I showed up at work. I did everything I was supposed to do. And everyone would say, you can take a hall pass. You can, take a break. And I said, I know I can, and I appreciate it, but it was almost like my mom's spirit. She was such a, get it done now, you don't know, and today is the day to do things. And so I'm a much more disciplined, much more focused person, but I also take time for the simple things now that I didn't before. So I pay attention, I look at flowers now, I actually pay attention to the bees that are, around the flowers. And my dad used to watch airplanes for whatever reason. He started watching airplanes go over the house. And I said, I didn't even know this many airplanes flew over my house because I never paid attention. And so now I pay attention to lots of things that I never would have before. And I spend time with even my animals in a way that I never did before, and really hold them and look at them. And so I'm a lot more focused in the little things, which I'm really happy that I got that gift out of the last 2 years, because we really don't know. I really lived it. You really don't know what's going to happen until it happens. And, lots of people got on the freeway today, and unfortunately, they're not coming home. Or lots of people went to work today and they're not. Like, it's just life. And you pray it's not tragic. But the truth is, we all see it. You watch local news, you watch world news. What the good thing that I felt that I wasn't alone is that I realized that bad things or unfortunate things happen to really good people all the time. And so we just have to tread a little lightly, because, it just does sometimes. We wish we lived in a world where only bad things happen to bad people and only good things would happen. But we all go through trials. We all go through tribulations. We all go through challenges. And then we have to make a decision about ourselves. Like, the one thing I did, I remember looking in the mirror and I kept saying to myself, what am I going to do? What do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? And then I stopped and I said to myself, no, who do you need to be right now in this moment? Who are you going to be? And then once I decided I'm going to stay a woman of faith, I'm going to stay in my faith, and I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to take it one day at a time, but it helped. And I just had to shift, you have to shift everything.
Yeah. Well, it almost feels like those two things are related, that sense of urgency and that idea that anything could happen at any time means that you have to just stay present in the thing you believe in the most, whatever that is.
Yes.
And you talk a lot about scripture in the book, because Jackie loved all kinds of scripture from
she did.
all over the world. And you
from all over the world.
Quote scripture, which is really lovely. Like, I haven't read a modern book that quotes scripture. It's like nice to see that woven into real life,
Yeah.
How does that play out in your day-to-day life? Like, what do you have a practice that you go to every day? I know maybe that's too personal a question, but I want to know. So I'm going to ask you.
I do. I'm praying all the time. I just, it's silently out loud. But in the morning, and my mom always gave me the Lord's Prayer to say every morning. And it was a habit that she created. She was not a very religious person. Like you said, she loved scripture from all around the world. Japanese scripture, Hindu scripture, Christian scripture, Jewish, anything. Anything that was of goodness and built your character, she read it and gave it to me. but she also wanted me to have this connection with the universe and have this connection with the creator. And she'd always say, if you have the same power that creates the world and creates planets and makes the stars, hangs the stars every night, if that power is running through you, why wouldn't you want to try and connect with it? And the way you connect with it is just be silent with it sometimes. Sometimes you pray and just talking, just getting everything out. And so I when I go into the bathtub, like I said, I talk to my mom, but I'm also taking that time for myself to meditate, to get still, to get quiet, to heal my body, to heal my emotions. I write a lot, I journal a lot. That's part of like my prayer practice as well. But believing in a higher power for me is everything, because it helps me through life. And I don't judge people who don't believe in a higher power, but for me, it's a very important ingrained part of my life.
I'm like the most connected person in the world until I get on the freeway. And then I love that quote that you had in the book from Pete Holmes. It's like, you're so mad at traffic. You are traffic.
We're the traffic.
Like, we're literally traffic. And it is such a good...
This is me driving at 2:30. I'm driving like, where is everyone going?
Why?
Where should everyone be going? And then it's like, wherever you're going. Bitch, why are you on the street? Like, why am I on the street? I mean, it's like, I'm yelling at everybody else. I'm like, oh, maybe they're going to work like I am. Maybe they're going to meet their friend like I am.
Oh my God, it's so funny. It's such a difficult balance, though, isn't it? Like you want to be this like incredibly still human being.
Oh yeah.
And then LA will,
it'll wreck you. Oh, all the time. I always do this every time or if you ask for patience, like, today I want to be so patient. Don't ask for patience.
Yeah,
the universe will test you.
They will throw everything
at the coffee shop. You get the worst driver in front of you, everything. And then I'm like, oh, I asked for patience.
Yeah, you're like,
right.
I asked for this.
I asked for this.
This is my fault.
And so now it's a test, and I'm not passing the test.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I've failed many times.
Oh, yeah, me too, all the time. But one test you do not fail, you talk a lot about forgiveness in your book. And I think this is sorry to say, I sound like I'm 105, but I feel like this is a lost concept. Like this is a tenet of so many religions, so many spiritual practices, like forgiving people, the hardest people to forgive. And there's a lot of examples you give of times in your life you've asked for forgiveness from people that love you. And then the hardest thing that probably anybody could face is having to forgive the person who,
and it's a hard word.
Yeah.
I mean, forgiveness is a tricky word because I do not condone what happened. Obviously, I don't condone any violence to anyone ever.
Yeah.
And I don't make excuses for bad behavior. That's not in my DNA. So I'm not very, when my mom used to go into neighborhoods and try and serve people, she'd always let's focus on the people who are actually here, who want to actually move forward. We're also focused on people who continuously make the wrong choices, and then you don't focus on the people who are trying to make who are making good choices and need a break. And so, but forgiveness for me, I want to just start off by saying it's not condonement. Forgiveness for me is deciding to have peace for myself. Because I cannot continue to be a joyous person, a positive person, I can't think constructively and hate someone. I can't be joyous and be filled with so much resentment and hate somebody. I can't do both. So forgiveness for me was just about, I'm giving up the frustration, I'm giving up the anger, I'm giving up the resentment every day. I have to do this all the time. And forgiveness also does not mean reconciliation. That was another big thing for me. This is a different situation, but I've even had friends where I have forgiven them, but we don't need to be friends anymore. Or people have forgiven me for things, and they had every right to say, but you don't need to come back into my space. Like, it's over, but it's forgiven.
Right.
It's not excused.
We're okay.
It's not condoned, but it's okay.
Right.
Not everyone stays on the train with you. And so forgiveness, because it's throughout every scripture, in all parts of the world, there's something to it, because they're trying to tell us that the heaviness, the anger that you have is just, we all hear it. I mean, it's the poison that you want someone else to drink, and it's in your body, and you're drinking it daily while you're hating somebody.
Yep.
So that's what it means to me, is just
Letting go.
just letting it go. And because it doesn't bring my mom back, it doesn't change what happened, it doesn't unscramble the egg. So I forgive so that I can move forward. I forgive so I can celebrate my mom. I forgive so I can be everything that I want to be without a bunch of heavy burdens.
Right. And I know that's a daily practice, but do you feel like you've done the work in that area that it has lifted
Yes.
that burden for you?
I don't even, honestly, I mean this, I don't even think about it at all. I'm so immersed in what's happening now and all the good things that I have in my life now that I don't have room for it.
God, Nicole, you're a miracle. You really are. I'm so in awe
It's
of
not
you.
easy, but I
love
don't
you
have
and in
room
awe
for
of
it.
you. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do.
It's not an easy thing. And it's, like I said, it's a daily practice. I always say it's like washing the dirtiest washcloth, like with tar. But every day, if you have the intention, another thing I had to learn, if you have the willingness to forgive, even if you don't know how to forgive, because I didn't in the beginning, I just would say, I am willing to forgive this whole situation. I don't know how it's going to look, but at least I'm willing, and I need help in getting there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just the willingness.
The willingness is half the battle.
Yeah. So you've done such a beautiful job of honoring your parents, right? And making sure their legacy is concrete. I want to ask you, what do you want to be remembered for? How do you want your legacy to roll out into the next hundreds and hundreds of years? And also, how do you want to get old? Like, this is a question I'm asking all my friends right now.
I like that.
Because we're staring down the back half.
I know.
So,
I know.
It's time to check it out.
Love that.
It's good to ask that question. You got to know,
We have to know. Oh my God, I think I hope to live a very, my husband laughs at this all the time because I think I'm very simple. He's like, you're not simple at all. But I want to have a very simple, small, like not small, but just, I don't know, like a cozy, like, just kind of, I don't know, I want to be cozy. I keep saying that, but I just kind of want to go in and be easy and continue to, rescue animals. I've done that with, not all animals, lots of dogs. I'm on my 6th one, and I love it. And every time, as we all know, it's like they pass, and you're like, I'm never doing this again. And then, of course, you do it again because there's nothing like it, and there's no love like that. But I love when, all my dogs were, on the kill list and this list and that list. I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take them. Let's figure this out. And I see myself as an older person kind of being with my animals and being cozy and chilling and hopefully continuing writing, I think. And the legacy, I think hopefully I'm living it now, and hopefully I continue to what I do now. And if I made people smile and feel better about anything, then I'm happy.
That is good. That is good. That's really good. It's a hard thing to think about, though, isn't it?
It's a really hard thing to think about. I don't know, but it's in the book. I came home from school, maybe in the 5th grade, and my mom, I said we had to write our obituary, which I heard now you're not even allowed to do that in school anymore. But in the 70s, we were allowed to do that.
We were allowed to do a lot of stuff in the 70s.
And it was a really good lesson because I wrote, I want to be a good person. And then I went home, I go, Mom, that's not enough. I don't know what to do with, I'm going to be a good person. I had to fill out the whole page. And my mom said, well, through your actions and through your behaviors throughout your life, if you're serving people in your own way, and if people, when they think about you, they smile, and when they think about you, they can say that you made a positive difference in their life. And she would always talk about, there's such a difference. She didn't care about fame at all. She didn't do anything to become famous. She didn't do any of her good deeds to be on the cover of a magazine or anything. And I think she wanted to drill that into me she'd always say, just do the next right thing. When you don't know what to do, just do the next right thing.
I love that so much.
And her prescription was, her prescription of life was be good and do good. And it'll all you'll still have challenges, because we all do, because we're on a journey. But I think that's the legacy that I would like to keep is, of showing up for people and making a positive difference in people's lives the same way that people did for me.
Yeah.
And just to continue with that energy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if I do that, then I think anybody who does that, it's the job.
That's the job. That's the whole job, right? Just make people feel good, serve other people, do no harm. I mean,
Yes.
it sounds simple, but it's feeling really hard these days. Do you have a sense of like a relationship? This is also a heavy question, but like, there's all these things, like you and your mom have the same birthday, you have like this draw to water. Like there are some things about your life that feel really destined, just from the outside. Do you have like a sense of the relationship between destiny and free will for yourself? I mean, you've had these massive, big, wonderful and challenging things happen to you, but like, how do you what do you think about all that? I know it's the biggest question ever.
No, I like that question. I believe in destiny. And I also believe in free will. And I believe that there's, some kind of path for everybody. But you can choose what you want to do, and if you want it, and if you don't want it. I think life is full of choices and decisions, and opportunities show up, and then we have a decision to either move forward with, some hope or pull back because of fear. And I've done both. And sometimes I do things that I want to do, and I'm afraid, but I just do it afraid, which then I learned also as I got older that that's what being courageous is. It's not being afraid. It's just doing it afraid.
That's a Jackieism, right?
That's a Jackieism. Do it afraid. And I think that I do believe, I ask for the divine will to manifest in my life. So everything I pray for, I always say, if it's meant to be, because I don't want anything that's, even if I want it, I always think of like the universe as like a GPS, like,
Do they want it for me?
Want it.
Right.
But sometimes you don't know what's around the corner. So when the door closes, we're all like, oh, it wasn't answered. But you don't know that person that you were going into business with was just about to rip you off and steal everything, but the door had to close.
Right.
Jay Shetty had his whole podcast ready to go, and all the producers walked out on him the first day because they didn't believe in him, and they didn't think his podcast would work. I mean,
who's laughing
now? But you don't know he made the decision to keep going.
Right.
And so I think that I am a believer in destiny and fate, but I also believe in free will, and I try to stay aligned with whatever is mine by divine right. I don't want anything that's not meant to be mine.
I hear that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Clarenceism, and what's your favorite Jackieism? There's so many good ones.
There's so many good ones. I talk about this one so much, but there's one thing about change. My dad used to say all the time, no matter what, if I'd say, oh my God, can you believe this happened, or this is happening in the world, or oh my God, I got this job, or anything, he'd say, hey, listen, nothing remains the same. I'm like, what? Wait, is that it? He goes, hey, listen, nothing remains the same. Better not forget it. He goes, you get your feelings hurt if you think everything's going to remain the same. And it was his way of reminding me that life is constantly in flow, and it's constantly in change, and you kind of have to go with it. And then his other ism that kind of goes with this is, it is what it is. Now, what are you going to do about it? And it's the second part that really was a great lesson for me, because he was teaching me. He wasn't trying to be hard. I know it sounds hard, but he wasn't being hard. He's like, if you don't if you try to make a decision like, I can't believe this happened, I can't believe this is happening, he goes, you can't make a decision from that energy, a good decision. But if you say it is what it is, like this has happened, this is what's going on, then what am I going to do about it? And by the way, it really helped me actually when this happened to my mom, because I was in the hospital and immediately it was, oh my God, okay, it is what it is. What am I going to do about it? And from that space, I started delegating. Ted, you go here. Alex, you do this. Dad, you're going to come home with me. All of a sudden, I started delegating from a place of power as opposed to spinning around. So, you know, those isms are my favorite of Clarence's. And my mom, I think it's, you should always talk about, you always have a choice. You can either swim or, you know, don't sink. You know, you've got to swim and don't go down with the ship. So sink or swim. Which one is it going to be, Nicole? Every challenge I brought to her, she goes, well, are you going to swim? Are you going to swim through it or are you going to sink? And that helped me also through everything in life, but especially this.
It's so simple.
It's
but
simple
it is.
and it's very hard to do, but it's about the constructive thinking that she was so about just think constructively so you can help your energy shift.
And both of them were, it was about forward momentum, because if you get stuck in that moment, you get stuck in the pain of that moment. All of a sudden you're living in the past and not the present. You're not pushing yourself forward.
No,
you know?
And it's like the rear view mirror, like I say in the book. Like I always tell Tony and Sarah, Ted's kids, like the rear view mirror is so small because you're just not supposed to go back to the past all the time. My grandma used to say that. Like, why do you think the mirror is so small? But the one in front of you is huge because you should be looking outward to where you want to go. You know, grab the lesson from the past and learn and take the lesson. But when you stay there, and I have many times in my life, and to your point, you know, we're not getting any younger, and I look back at all the times I wasted, years sometimes, that I wasted on somebody or something. It was just, you don't get it back.
Yeah.
And, you know, forcing it to work or hoping the other person changes, you know.
No,
No.
they're not going to change.
No.
That's the lesson.
Yeah, they're not.
You change.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you what Jackie said that I loved. I said, I was dating somebody in my 20s. I said, I just don't know where I stand in this relationship. And she said, well, stand somewhere else. So Jackie. And she was right. She goes, why don't you move and stand somewhere else? And then you know where you'll stand. You decide where you stand in the relationship. Oh yeah.
So good. Oh, it's so good. I think we have to open it up to other people as much as I want to just keep talking, but we're open for questions.
I worked with both your fathers over the years. Nicole, I met your dad through my uncle David Cunningham many, many years ago.
Hi.
And I managed a couple of musicians who worked with your father. How do you both deal with being who you are in this world?
I mean, you mean it because of our parents? I think we just have really, I'm not going to speak for you, but we have really good parents. I mean, whatever they are, whatever they mean to the outside world, I feel incredibly lucky. I had loving, supportive, honest, present parents. I mean, that's it. That were also not, they just are not about bullshit, to be honest.
And they were orderly.
Yeah.
Very orderly. Yeah. Punishments. Like they gave us boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think also and I don't mean to speak for you, but I think that they allowed us to be who we wanted to be and didn't give us any pressure to live up to who they became. And just, you know, we're standing in our shoes, you go stand in your shoes, no shadows here. There's just, you go be you. And I think the freedom of that was everything that allowed us to end up being who we became, because we had the freedom and the support to do so.
Yeah. Definitely not pushed in any specific direction. Just like the thing that we loved, they let us pursue. They just said, get good at it.
Yeah.
Just go get good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. Thank you. What's your name?
Charles.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you remember Taboo Records?
Yes.
Oh, I mean,
I'm dating myself.
taboo. The best.
Yeah, I'm Nicole, and I worked there, and everyone would say, Nicole, and I would go, no, not that one.
The other Nicole.
And Mr. Avant was he had such a huge influence on my life from even all these years ago. I just appreciate
love that you worked at Taboo. Wait, what years were you at Taboo? Or what artist?
Alexander O'Neill. So I was the one that used to like send all the VHS tapes to all the radio stations. So
Really?
they, yeah.
Oh, that's
So good.
amazing. He was one of my favorite artists on Taboo.
The best.
Yeah.
The
Oh
best.
my goodness.
But you look 20.
Yeah,
so
I
I
was
don't
gonna
know what's
say.
happening over there.
I was looking at it like, how did you work at Taboo?
No, I'm not 20.
No.
No. A lot of seasoning. But, so I just, I really appreciated the work ethic that your dad had and the way he would command the room. He would kind of come in. He was just such a big presence. How were you able to differentiate from your, all of that personality, all of that, and not you were able to find your own way?
That's a good
in
question. I love studying people, and he was so big and sometimes very brass, and, so I learned how not to be a lot. He had a lot of grit. He had the most grit, and he needed a little more grace. So my mom had the grace in spades, but I loved everything about him, and I also knew that was just his personality, and that's who he felt comfortable as in the world, and that I had to find my own rhythm and what I was comfortable, what my energy, how I was going to show up in the world. And I figured out, thank God, at a young age that it didn't have to be necessarily just like him, and I didn't have to necessarily be like my mother either, but I focused on the people, whoever I liked, and who were also really good to people. Every job that I've had, my mom always had me working, and I love that she did that, and she always had me be a waitress all the time. She's like, oh, trust me, honey, you're gonna see human nature at its best and its worst when you serve people. And so I kind of learned how to be and what parts of my personality I wanted in the world by studying other people. That was really it.
Earlier you spoke about how during your grief you still maintained a level of discipline, you continued to work and really sort of dig into your different projects. And I was just wondering, during that time, how did you check in with yourself to know like when you were sort of pushing yourself to your limit or beyond your limit?
That's a good question. Great question. My test is always my impatience goes just skyrockets. And I was over busying myself where my tone changes very quickly and I'd start snapping, and those were signals of you need to pull back. You're doing too much because you're giving out too much energy and you're not receiving anything back. And even if it was 10-minute breaks, which I also had to learn, I never did a 10-minute break before, I would just say, I would put my phone, I'm like, for the next 10 minutes, I'm doing nothing. For the next 20 minutes, I'm doing nothing. I'm just going to lay here and just receive light, love, anything. And it really worked because I was checking in with myself a lot. Because I had things, I was feeling emotions that I had never felt before, so I didn't know how to manage them. And I didn't know how to really manage anger in a way where I had to learn how, because I'm really not an angry person, and I was pissed. So I had to navigate that, and so I would start reading a lot of scripture. I would read self-help books or anything just positive, or watching a positive, a good movie that just the Hallmark Channel, by the way, worked wonders. Just something really HGTV.
Low frequency,
just easy,
low stakes,
easy,
low stakes.
easy. So, but that helped me. When I started feeling, the impatience was probably the biggest signal for me, and anything outside of my normal personality is when I decided, nope, I'm gonna turn off, and really give myself permission to turn off. Yeah.
I had a question just with everything that's happening, and with everything that you've had to overcome. Given the circumstances of the world right now and things that are happening, is there any advice that you can give for maybe people that might be getting a little bit lost in the pain of it all?
Yeah, it's a heavy time, for sure. I think being on purpose and focusing on being as good to other people as you would want people to be to you, and kind of going back to that feeling of hope and compassion and being patient and just gentle. I think there needs to be just the gentleness is missing from the world. It's missing from every society, I think. Everyone is just so on edge, but we're forgetting that we're all, where are we going? Everyone's like, I want these people, but we're all here and there's one world and we have to live here with each other. And I think there's something that Rashida's dad taught me every time I would travel when I was young. He'd say, you're going to meet your brothers and sisters around the world. And I thought it was such a weird thing. Like, what are you talking about? And I took a trip to Russia, and it was the Soviet Union at the time. And he goes, you're going to go meet your brothers and sisters. I'm like, I don't think so. But for him, he was like, everybody is your brother and sister on the globe. And so for me, when anything is happening around the globe on any continent, it doesn't matter if they look like you. It doesn't matter if it's a different language. Wish them well. And wish the best for people, because we are connected because we're human. And we all have this interconnectedness, and I think it's beautiful. So that's my offering. The book even is just an offering of love and an offering of hope and an offering of goodness into the world. And wherever it lands, it lands. But that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, and we were talking about it backstage, of really praying for people around the world that I've never met. And wanting the best for the region, wanting the best for everybody involved, especially the children. Yeah, sure. Here.
Hi, Nicole, you're incredible. Thank you so much for writing this book. I'm curious if your service might lead you to run for office in any way, because I want to sign up for that.
I was thinking about that today, actually. I had that same thought.
Aren't you, Amy? Look at it. I have not thought about running for office, even though people suggest that I should, but I have not thought, honestly, I haven't thought about it. I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying I wouldn't. Politics is so hard right now. It used to be when I was growing up, even on different sides, you saw people working to find a solution, which was great. And now it's just so difficult where people are saying, I'm not ever going to even meet with that person. I'm like, but your job, we pay taxes for you to actually go sit with that person and not have to agree on anything, but you do have to compromise, and we have to find a medium so that we don't let people just slip through the cracks, because otherwise get out of the seat. So that's the only way that I would, if there's something for me to do,
Bridge that gap. You could bridge that gap.
I guess. Maybe.
That's not a very cozy back half. It's a different version.
No, it's a really, completely opposite of what I said. I want to go really small and be with my animals I'm going to go into politics and just,
we'll see.
Get hammered every day. But it's worth it. I will say it is worth it, and people do it for us every day. And I thank everybody who goes into the arena, because politics is not a fun arena at all. But we have a democracy, and we're really fortunate to have a democracy. And and we're really fortunate to have our freedoms. Of course, America is not perfect, but I really don't know one country that is. And I think we are honestly, on every study, we're still the most generous people in the entire world. And we do have I think Americans have this natural saying of, that's because all the Europeans laugh at us. Like, I just saw a movie where the guy said, have you ever tried to say no to an American? Do you know how hard it is to say no to an American? Because we keep going. And I think that spirit is something that we should celebrate and not, I think our generosity we should celebrate. And I think there's a lot to celebrate about us, to be quite honest. So hopefully it'll catch up in politics again. And I hope that we can get to a better place.
TBC. That's what I say
Yeah.
about you.
Yes.
To be continued.
I'd like to express my condolences to both of you on the loss of your beautiful mothers.
Thank you.
Nicole, I had the pleasure of meeting your mother on several occasions. She was elegant, gracious, warm, down to earth. I remember having a wonderful conversation with her about some boxes that she collected.
Oh, her lacquer?
Boxes, I believe. Just a wonderful person. My mother died when I was 17 years old, and my brother was 9. I cannot imagine how difficult, this must have been for you to compose yourself and be able to relive all of those wonderful memories, difficult memories, and to compile it in a book, a guide for other people. But I thank you for doing that. It was more than a decade after my mother died before Hope Edelman's book, Motherless Daughters, came out, and that was very helpful for me. In addition to the fact my mother's mother had lost her mother when she was 16, and she was very helpful to me.
Yeah.
I'm a physician specializing in child, adolescent, and adult psychiatry, and I work and have worked with a lot of people over the years as they've grappled with grief, and wonder if you found solace in your relationship with Rashida as you moved through grief since she had lost her mother prior to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually one of my favorite, and I talk about it in the book, one of my favorite moments was when Rashida and her sister Kidada came to visit us. And it was a couple weeks maybe after, I don't remember, but my dad, when he saw Rashida and Kidada, I went up to his room, I said, Rashi's here and Kidada's downstairs. They are, but all of a sudden his grief kind of left for a second because he had beautiful memories of when they were born and when they were little, and he used to take Rashida on these walks. And he used to carry Rashida in the street. Remember, he used to go down Stone Canyon, and Lord knows what they were. She was a baby. And he's like, we're talking about things. We're doing deals. But it was sweet to also be able to talk to her if we needed to. It was almost silent. Like we just felt each other, but you didn't feel alone. And I will say, God bless you for the work you do, because it's hard, and people need it.
Thank you.
And I will say this, I was 53 when my mom passed, and I told somebody the other day, they said, oh, you're so strong, I go, because I was 53. Had I been 10, 3, 10, 9, 17, my mom's dad died when she was 16, and it's very different. So that was the only thing that I looked at myself like, I don't know how I would have been at 30 even. It's very different and age does help you with dealing with things. But having Rashida around and knowing that she was around and having Quincy around was everything, because I immediately went to Quincy's house after it happened and just sat with him and cried with him, and he held me and checked in on me all the time and said, we're staying together as a family. Like, this is a family tragedy, and we are going to grieve together, and we are also going to love together and spend more time together, which we did and we do. So.
And incidentally, I was born on my mother's birthday.
Oh my gosh.
So did I.
Wow.
Oh my
Amazing.
goodness, I love that.
Oh, it's so
When's your
sweet.
birthday, by the way?
March 27th.
Okay.
Aries.
Aries.
It's so nice though. I feel so grateful to my parents for so many things, but I think having the community that they were so tight with their friends, and we loved each other, but they made us all be friends. Like we spent time, it felt like we were in a real community, and LA can be a very isolated place, and especially like, at the time that it was or whatever, but like they gave us a whole network, like a whole little town within a city where like we had, I feel like the Avants are my family forever. Like Poitiers are my family forever. Like I feel like I have more sisters and brothers and parents than I could ever
Me too.
want. And that's so lovely. I'm so grateful for that.
They were very on purpose about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody so much. And Nicole, I want to thank you just for being so honest and sharing your spirit and sharing your story and giving me the opportunity to get to know you better as well as I know you. Who you are as an author, who you are as a storyteller, who you are as a daughter is just remarkable. And I'm so happy for you is not the right word, but I am so happy for you that this can be out in the world and other people get to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love you so much.
Rashi. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.